I was tempted to talk about the kinds of things that Paul Songo, the last presentations, which I think were key. I'm glad that I did not head in that direction. I chose a much simpler subject, but I think a core one, and that is how administrative districts and administrative provinces are chosen and whether they need to be altered. So we have a double definition of provinces and provincial electorates in Papua New Guinea. Provinces come under one law, provincial electorates come under another law, but they are required to have identical boundaries. Similarly, districts come under one law and open electorates come under another law, but they are required to have the same boundaries. And this leads to some kinds of problems. Maybe there are good things that happen too, but we'll look at some areas where things could be changed. So, we have, coming up, promised a review of provincial electorates and open electorates. And that has been delayed. And I want to look at how administrative considerations should come into the review of provincial and open electorates. I'm not talking about the kinds of things that we had in the last presentation and the multiple roles of open members of parliament, provincial members of parliament, but keep that in the back of your mind as I'm talking. I think, again, the presentation in the last session was admirable. Now, we're looking at a variety of legislation, and you've got the Constitution making provision for provinces, Section 5.2, and under that you have an organic law on provincial boundaries. Now, separate from that, you have an organic law on national and local government electorates, which concerns the decision-making on provincial and open electorate boundaries. And you've got the quotation there on the boundaries of a district from the organic law on provincial governments and local level governments, which says boundaries of a district shall be the same as the open electorates of Parliament. Now, somewhere in the back of our mind, we've got to think, what is the role of local level governments? What is the role of district administrations? And the open electorate member, who is primarily a member of Parliament, however, at the district or open electorate level, whatever you like to call it, has a very strong influence, and that influence is seen as connected with his or her chances for re-election. Now, our previous speakers were quite careful in alluding to possible implications of recent legislation in the November 2013 session of Parliament, and there were two aspects that are immediately relevant. One is the establishment of a district development authority, and I was a little bit saddened when I approached our colleagues from East New Britain and said whether they knew anything about that legislation. They said, well, we haven't got copies yet. And I thought, if the people in East New Britain don't know about it, then probably no one else does. One, because Tolai are normally well informed. Number two, because their member is also Minister for Intergovernment Relations. However, they said they didn't know. Sir Paul Songo was decidedly cautious, and he said, well, maybe it's a fourth level of government, or words to that effect. then there is the Appointment to Certain Offices Act. And again, I haven't managed to get a copy of this. I have friends in the Department of Provincial and Local Government Affairs, and they made promises, and I'm sure the promises will come true, but I've not got the legislation yet, and I couldn't find it on the internet. However, it seems to give the open member a key voice in the appointment of district administrators, but not having seen the legislation, I can't say that definitely. So the consequences of this kind of legislation and the previous legislation is that you have administrative services tightly tied more closely to districts, and implications of open electorate boundary changes also influence any kind of changes in electorate boundary changes, affects any changes in administrative districts. Now, if you start to play around with new districts, it becomes really complicated. You've got to establish new headquarters, you've got to establish new staff housing, you've got to appoint new staff, maybe you have to disappoint other staff, all right? Yet this has not really been discussed, and it would be good if the debate were opened. Now, the people who make the changes, at least at the electorate level, are the Electoral Boundaries Commission. And the Electoral Boundaries Commission is headed by the chair of the Electoral Commission. He's also chair of the Electoral Boundaries Commission, and he's somebody who's, I think, has earned a fair amount of respect over the years for his management of elections, Andrew Trawen. So he now is responsible for guiding preparation of recommendations on new provinces, new provincial electorates, new open electorates, new administrative districts. Now, you may have been assured, May 2013, all you who are really senior in Papua New Guinea above me, this is in the stateroom in Parliament, and you recognize that gentleman? Prime Minister, and Andrew Trawen, and you have the launching of the Electoral Commission plan. And the Prime Minister said, last May, 12 months ago, Electoral Boundaries Commission reports must be done early so that they can be tabled in Parliament for implementation before the next general election. And Andrew Trawen got up and said, yes, sir, they will be done in late 2013 and early 2014. Has anybody seen the recommendations from the Electoral Boundaries Commission? Nobody? Anybody? Anybody seen the consultations by the Electoral Boundaries Commission since last May? Nobody? Oh, okay. Maybe there's a gap in implementation. Now, I'll go a little bit about the history of this, but previous Electoral Boundaries Commission reports came near the end of the term of Parliament, and MPs have to endorse by a sufficient majority or reject by a huge majority any recommendations from the Electoral Boundaries Commission. And because it's come near the end of the term of Parliament, they said, no way, this is my electorate which I've given services to, treated with love and care, and if they change the boundaries now, my political career will collapse, and with my political career, the future of Papua New Guinea. All right? So when the recommendations come, every time the members have blocked any changes. And Andrew Trawen spoke again January, and he said 89 open electorates, always rejected new boundaries, 1981, 1985, 1991, 2005, and we're very lucky we have good families here and our population is rapidly increasing. All right? And yet there has been no changes in political representation since 1977. All right? And Andrew Trawen said, let's have more open electorates, more provincial electorates. So this was January. Anybody heard of any consultation since then? No? Oh dear. Okay. I thought me yell past man now, you know, heard him talk. All right. Now, I remember when I'm talking about this, I'm also talking about administrative districts and provinces. And I'll be coming to areas where they do need radical improvement. And we need then review of provinces and provincial electorates and a timetable for amending the organic law on provincial boundaries. And you need also to amend the organic law on national and local government electorates if you want to increase the numbers. Now, I've heard no plans yet for amending the organic law in order to increase the number of open electorates permitted. (25th of February), Andrew Trawen spoke again and said, yep, he'll take it on. He'll split some open electorates. So Parliament should amend the organic law on provincial boundaries under what recommendations, and it'll flow on to the provincial electorates. Now, I'll be looking at some aspects of the provincial electorates as administrative areas, provinces as administrative areas. So, do we need to, questions to be asked underneath this? I want to know whether present districts or open electorates, whatever you like to call them, meet administrative needs, and do present provincial boundaries meet administrative needs. And I say in every case, I'm not saying that a lot of them do not meet administrative needs, but there are areas where they need to be significantly improved. Now, you might get a little bit suspicious of me as being one-sided too much for white skin. All right? Back in 1884, the German Emperor and the British Queen helped set the boundary between what is now Western Province and West Sepik. All right? Those of you who were not around in 1914, and most of you were not, will not know that this is a flag of German New Guinea. All right? Okay. And you look up there, there is a straight line between West Sepik and Western Province. And Queen Victoria and the German Kaiser, the German Emperor, in their wisdom, decided in 1884 that this should be the boundary between German New Guinea and British New Guinea, as it was then. And we have decided in Papua New Guinea that this shall still remain the best boundary for administration. Now, Paul Songo gave us a heart-rending story of how much it cost to get from Vanimo to Telefomin. Anybody remember? 700 kina, yeah. Now, if you are living in a district which has little access to cash incomes, there is no river transport, there's no road transport, and there's air transport, at that price, you're a long way from Vanimo. Public servants find it a significant problem because they don't get their pay directly, and quite often they have to go down to Vanimo sometime, somehow, to sort out their pay. And then people complain because they're away for a couple of months. How do you organise medical supplies? There's an article in the newspaper last week on the telephone in the hospital. No medical supplies, the cost of transport and the difficulty of transport. So the present boundaries are killing people. Now, Telefomin is about 20 kilometres from the border, and you've got a plan for a road down to Kiunga. Should we be looking at some kind of amendment of the boundary in order to facilitate administration and contacts? Okay, just by the by, we have a 2011 census, and Anglin South Wagi has been doing especially well on their Love Your Wife, Love Your Husband program. And you will find that from the census in 2000, where it was 96,750, it's increased to 190,981. If you believe the census. Now, you've got all sorts of, I don't want to enter into politics between Melpa and Wagi, but perhaps if you're looking at ethnic identity for ease of administration and participation in government, Anglin should go to the Melpa side and leave Jawaka, and South Wagi can remain with the Wagi, and you divide, and Jawaka. And you divide to take into account ethnic identity. And you might have a more comfortable administration and government. District boundaries. You see this gentleman looking down. That road was built 1968 something, 1975 something, all right? Got a good member. And it's now been closed for 25 years. It's a road from Ayom, Middle Ramu, up to Simbai. Now, without that road, you have a choice a bit like Telefomin. It costs something like 420 kina for a plane ride, or you can walk for 3 days. It's a good exercise. And you also need to go up the river, Ramu River, for half a day on a boat. But you can get there. And these people then talk about their links with Jimmy and with people across the Western Highlands border, and they feel more identity there. Should we be thinking of them, or should we keep them in a kind of broken isolation administratively? You go to the Simbai substation, and the power system broke down 25 years ago too. The water supply inside the township broke down too. They've got no bank, no ATM, no nothing like that. They've got no mobile telephones. They are isolated. They're good people. Should we be making it easy for them to establish links more easily and a road more easily across the boundaries? So this is looking at the sub-district level, perhaps changes that we could make. Looking at the district level, nomad local level governments. And nomad is this area in the northwest of the Middle Fly. It's a very large local level government area. It has no roads. Its main contacts are with Kiunga. And yet it's part of the Balamo district. How do you defend that on administrative grounds? There's no regular air flights from Balamo to Nomad. When you talk to the people there, you find a couple of things which suggest that they are out of political contact. And here's Bob Denier, who was earlier, you remember, provincial governor for Western Province, saying that his people and the other people have never really done the geographic contact so that they know which province a village is in. And that becomes an issue in Parliament. And then you have another issue in Parliament, and you find that the nomad local level government people suddenly finding that all their land has been taken under an SABL, and they know nothing about it. And yet they have... okay, we walk him something, hurry up, huh? All right? Okay. So, we need some kind of action, and if you want more provinces or amend provincial boundaries, start thinking how you're going to amend the organic law and provincial and boundaries. It will only take you 3 months if you hurry it up. Consultations for Electoral Boundaries Commission on electorates, open electorates. I put the schedule down there. 3 months, 1 month, 2 months. It takes a year, and then you've got Parliament to think about it. Formula for each electorate, just population, will speed by, because en one plahat le man. Okay, number of electorates that might need to change, and an example of an electorate. The electorate with the least number, is Golala district, and you've got a census of 31,000 roughly, which is about a third of the present quota. Now, you might need to think how you're going to vary the districts. So, I'd like a little bit of pressure on that people start to think of what are appropriate administrative districts for local governments, district authorities, and whatever else, and provincial governments, which are part of a decentralized system, to do their work adequately. And MTESL, time going.